Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. So as I went to the Blind Kitchen website, I saw the perfect headline to begin this episode. It says in bold print, everyone has a place at the kitchen. And I already messed that up. Everyone has a place at the table in the Blind Kitchen. I have the kitchen on the mind. Debra Erickson, she's a chef. She's the founder of the Blind Kitchen. She is not only a motivational speaker who shares her amazing story, which I can't wait to get into on this episode. She also provides the tools and skills necessary for those who are visually impaired or blind to cook while blind. And believe me, it's hard enough to cook with decent vision, let alone visually impaired. So I may come across a few things off of Debra that might even help me. But the Blind Kitchen, just to kind of read a little bit more off of her LinkedIn, the Blind Kitchen provides accessible cooking tools and tips for blind and vision impaired cooks that allow them to cook safely, independently, and confidently in their own kitchen. I think this is a wonderful thing that you're doing, Debra. Welcome to Mark My Words. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Mark. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure and my honor to have you on the show. And thank you for your patience. I'm all about the little bloopers and stuff, and I'm transitioning to a new platform. And don't give a technical person toys because that just sets off a whole interesting firestorm of, oh, I can do this and I can do that. And I'm like, all right, I have to cut Debra a break here. There's enough obstacles in her life, I'm sure, and I'm doing all this stuff. But you've been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And I can't wait to just hear about your journey.
No problem. Cooking is easy for me. Technology, not so much.
Yeah, we kind of got this flipped a little bit because I'm like just figuring, even with your situation, I'm like, I have confidence that she can follow, which you did. You actually did pretty good, Deborah.
Thank
So,
you.
with all that being said, I always jump into the episode by talking a little bit about the past. And first of all, were you always interested in cooking? I see that you also got a master's in therapeutic recreation. I mean, tell your story a little bit about recreation studies and then just your what you were interested in growing up in general.
Yeah, so I've not always been blind. It happened, I was diagnosed when I was 28. So I grew up pretty normally, not being identified as vision impaired. And I went to graduate school at San Jose State and got my master's degree in therapeutic recreation. And then I worked at the VA in Palo Alto, California for 13 years as a recreation therapist. During that time, I was diagnosed with the eye disease, and I knew it was degenerative. So I continued to do recreation therapy for a while, but I found I am frustrated at trying to do things that I used to do in a different way as a rule. It's much more rewarding for me to start something brand new and then learn all the new information that comes along with it than try to do what I do in a different way. Other people are different. They go right back to being a lawyer. They go right back to being a CPA. Not me.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, so you said that you had trouble just like doing things day to day. Not that I hopefully am going back to stuff that maybe you don't want to talk about or think about, but what was kind of like the first sign that something was not quite right?
Oh, that's a really good question because I was diagnosed when I was 28. I'm one of 12 children from Indiana, and there's absolutely no history of this eye disease on either side of the family. So, but I had astigmatism in my left eye and wore glasses. My sister Dawn had low vision, not low vision, but close up view. I can't think what the word is, but she could only see close up and couldn't see very far. So she wore glasses. So about once a year, my dad would put six, and he wore glasses. So he would put like six kids in the car and we'd go to the country doctor. You can't make this up. It's Dr. Corns in Indiana. And we would have our eyes checked. And if I needed a prescription changed, we'd arrange for it and whatever. And so when I was 28, I went in for a pair of glasses again for that same stigmatism in my left eye. My right eye was perfect. And it probably didn't happen this way, but this is the way it hit me, that the doctor looked into doing a general exam and he says, "Hey, I think you have an eye disease and you're going to go blind. So you should probably see a specialist." That's the way I heard it. I'm sure he had a softer way of saying it, but it didn't come across soft. So once I was diagnosed by an ophthalmologist, then we went back through the records, and there was a note in my record when I was 17. There was signs of decreased peripheral vision. She should see a specialist, but that didn't happen because it's kind of crazy when you got that many kids, and you can imagine how one could drop through like that. So it's very common for this disease to start in adolescence, and it looks like I went the trajectory. I have two brothers with it as well. They have not gone as far with vision loss as me. In fact, my brother that's older than me, they've actually said that his has been arrested. He hasn't had any vision change in 5 years. So thank goodness. I'm glad for him that way. And the other one is like 11 years younger. So I'm not sure uh, what his path will be yet.
Wow, what an amazing story. I mean, that's yeah, I don't even know what to say about all that. Just wow, I mean, I'm so sorry that all that happened to you. I mean, but you said you still have like a tiny bit of vision, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right. Yeah, I have light perception and I can see it in the right lighting. I can see like clouds moving by me. It'd be like you being in the shower and having somebody walk by the steamed up walls. You don't get any definition, but you know something's there. And so that's the vision I have in my left eye, if the lighting is right.
Gotcha. Fair enough. So you had to make a pretty big transition in your life and the way you're living life and the way you just wanted to, continue on as a professional. So tell a little bit about that process and how you came to the conclusion that you wanted to be a chef.
You know, it's kind of funny. I was not a good cook. When I was growing up, cooking meant peeling 10 pounds of potatoes, and mom cooked. She had 7 daughters. She could not stand in front of the stove and with each of us. So we supported her whatever way she needed us to, and she fed us well, and I'll always be grateful for that. But I did not cook. And even though once I moved out and I have my own family, I would do boxes like, hamburger helper or macaroni and cheese. I could read directions and follow them. And so I wasn't a good cook, but sufficient. My youngest son is 6'5", so I must have done something right with this. But cooking was not my passion by any stretch. So in my professional life, after I was a recreation therapist, actually I went back to my alma mater and taught professional writing part-time while I worked at the VA. And then I taught mediation at Oregon Health and Science University after that. And I loved teaching adults. And so I knew that was what I wanted to do. So when I went to Voc Rehab at the Oregon Commission for the Blind, I took my Braille lessons. I took orientation mobility that teaches you how to travel safely using a long white cane, or perhaps you're trying to get a service dog, and how to use my phone with a black screen screen readers where it just talks to me, and my computer just talks to me, tells me what's on the screen. And I was also taking a meal prep class so I could learn to cook safely, use a stove without vision. So I was in the class with this woman who is my mentor and my dear friend now, and I thought, I'm having fun. This is kind of fun, the camaraderie, you know, smelling it, learning it. And so a light bulb went on and it said, I could teach this. And then the light bulb went on. I'm like, I don't know how to cook. How the heck am I going to teach people how to cook? And so that's where culinary school came from. I never really wanted to be a chef, but I wanted, where do you learn how to teach cooking? You go to cooking school. And so that's where that came from. And they were supportive of my efforts to go there. And I went there, and it was an experience that was incredibly hard, a lot of heavy lifting. I'm no spring chicken, a lot of long hours, but I was able to get through it, and I loved it. I really, really did. But it forced me to solve a lot of problems to be competitive with the other students, which were just out of high school or early 20s. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. So that's how I ended up becoming a chef, and I had work experiences and stuff like that. Um, and I wanted to teach at the Oregon Commission for the Blind. I wanted to teach adults how to cook. That was always my goal. What's a blind kitchen? I have no idea. I just want to be a teacher. So then COVID hit in March of 2020. So then I was paused for a year and a half. So then I was able to organize all this information. I really didn't have time to organize in real time and keep up with school, but because I'd find a gem here in this podcast or a gem here in this uh, blog, or reading a book, I'd find, oh gosh, that would be very helpful for blind people. And so I organized it, and that's how the blind kitchen came up. It's like, this is kind of cool. There must be a way to get this information into the hands of other people.
So, did you ever before this time? I mean, basically, I'm guessing your goal was to just, okay, I'm going to be a chef, I'm going to teach. You had zero thought of becoming an entrepreneur until COVID hit.
That's exactly right. None. No, no, no inkling that I would ever be an entrepreneur.
So, what's like the 10 most important culinary tool that you use?
The most important culinary
Yeah,
tool?
the most important. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's fine. The probably it would be that's like asking my favorite child. I do have one, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They're both my favorite. Um, it'd probably be the talking thermometer, because if I am trying to feed my family and keep them safe, and let's say I'm doing poultry, a turkey or a chicken, I cannot look and cook it till the juices run clear. I don't have access, or cook it till it's no longer pink. I don't have access to that information either. But this gives me a loud, clear voice, a reading of what the internal temperature of that turkey is, and I can find it. I have a strategy, and it's not perfect, but I can find the thickest part of the meat closest to the bone, which will be the last part to cook, and I can find out what's going on inside that turkey. Because for people with vision loss and without vision loss, if you don't want to make your family and friends sick, you're going to probably overcook it just to make sure. It's better giving them chewy food, beef jerky, instead of something that they can't, that it'd make them sick. And so this allows me to be competitive with other cooks. I know exactly what's going on as the person that can see perfectly their thermometer next to me. And it's kind of funny because you can use that for sometimes, like baked potatoes. They can be really thick, and it can be hard to tell if they're done in the middle because the prongs of the fork. But if it's cooked to 207 degrees in the center, you're done.
So, how does a blind person like organize their kitchen and their pantry? I'm guessing there's probably a lot, kind of like Braille, the way you might read. Like, is it similar to that?
So there are 12 right answers as to how to label your spices or your foods, because it depends on, first of all, your budget, your comfort with technology. There are some very high tech things out there, but there are some really low, such as a rubber band. And I'll give you an example of that. If I have a can of cream of mushroom soup and I have a can of cream of chicken soup, they're going to be exactly alike in weight, in size, and sound. But if I come home from the grocery store and however I get the information to read the label, and there's a lot of different ways to do that, if I put a rubber band around the cream of mushroom soup, mushroom has an R in it, like the rubber band, chicken doesn't. So even in 6 months, if I've assigned meaning to that rubber band, I'm going to know what it is in 6 months. But there's also so much technology coming out right now. The Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses, the artificial intelligence, they take a picture and then the AI analyzes it and describes it. That's how
Oh,
I find out what's
wow.
in my cans and stuff now. It is amazing. There's so much technology coming out. I focus on the stuff that's in the kitchen, but yeah, there's like 100, or there's like probably a dozen ways to label things depending on your budget and your comfort with technology. Rubber bands are pretty cheap, and if you buy asparagus, you get two of them free. So there you go.
That's amazing. I know we were talking a little bit about accessibility. I had a fellow blind podcast guest, as I was telling you before we started, that talked all about accessibility, just mainly with like technology. Uh, Putting this awesome thing aside, is there anything else that you can think of? And I know this is kind of maybe putting you on the spot a little bit. You can say you don't know if you really don't know, but are there any other things that you can think of that could help like somebody like you in the kitchen to perform better, like accessibility wise?
So I have a I use my smart speaker to control my air fryer only with my voice, also my convection oven and my microwave. I can just tell it what to do. It'll repeat back to me to make sure it has it right, and then I hear it start up. I can do that from across the room.
Wow.
So smart speakers are pretty amazing. They can also access and read recipes to you step by step. They're not perfect, but that's another thing. There is a system out there called Way Around, which is RFID. They are special tags, and you download the app on your phone, record what information you want onto that Way tag, and then when you hold your phone to it, when the app is open, it'll read back to you in a robotic voice what what is whatever you put on that label. So if I'm in the kitchen and I have a pound of hamburger and a pound of ground turkey and a pound of ground pork, let's say, I can put on a tag that can survive in the freezer. It's not a sticker. It's a special. They have different kinds of them, and this one's like a kind of like a button with a big hole in the middle. I attach that to each package of meat, one, and then I label them while I know what they are. And then I put them in the freezer, and all I have to do is bring my phone close to them. And then I'll know which is which because I can't smell it. I can't tactile information. They're going to feel exactly alike if they're packaged the same. And even reading Braille, I have I'm slow at Braille. I learned it as an adult, so it's a struggle for me. But my fingers would be numb before I could figure out which package it was. So there's a lot of technology out there like that for us.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about Braille. You walk around like office buildings and other places where they'll have the Braille set up there, and it's just fascinating to me. I mean, obviously, I've been sighted for 46 years, so it's I'm not the right audience probably to really be able to comprehend what that might be like. And you just saying that you've, had some obstacles with it just makes me think of those time periods where I'm walking around and I just imagine what that might be like. I mean, where exactly do you think do you think they could be better with that system? What are your thoughts on just that in general? I don't really know why I'm asking this. I think I'm just curious.
Okay, yeah, no, it's a good question. So um, about 10% of people that are legally blind can read Braille. It's a very low number. And
Wow.
just like penmanship in the schools, they're not teaching Braille to all blind kids. There are the unemployment rate of blind or legally blind people is at 70% in the US. It's a ridiculously high number because it's hard for us to get our foot in the door. Who's going to let a person that can't see in with knives and hot surfaces? It's very hard for us to get in the door. But I think it's 90% of employed people with vision loss can read Braille. So it's really important for us to be able to do that. It is a different language, but if technology goes down and I have Braille there, I'm not lost. Or if they quit supporting an app and they won't do upgrades and I'm using through my phone, Braille will always exist on my bottles if I need them. I'll use both Braille and like Pen Friend or like the way arounds like I talked about. I often use both. So then I have a backup plan.
Right. Yeah, I grew up watching Little House on the Prairie. I don't know. And oh my gosh, you already know where this is going.
I do.
I mean, it's a TV show, so they make everything look like, oh, Mary just, she's so smart and just, seamlessly. I mean, obviously they showed that obviously it was like very hard emotionally and everything else, but boy, she got through everything minus some of her, you know, her like emotional issues. Like she got through all that brilliantly, like learned everything brilliantly. And I guess that's just kind of like my perception, probably a terrible perception.
No,
But
that's the way it was portrayed. I remember, but I could get through a lot of stuff with Michael Landon by my side, but and
well,
Nellie
yeah,
Olson didn't tear her
I
down.
mean, I could get through a lot of life with Michael Landon as well. I mean, he was a pretty amazing
Yes.
guy. Although
Yeah.
there are some rumors. I'm not here for rumors, but
There we go. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
but the way they portrayed everything, like yeah, he was brilliant. All right. I'm getting like entirely off track with Little House on the Prairie. I love Little House on the Prairie. That was
I
an
did
amazing
too. I
show.
did too.
But yeah, let's kind of get back on track here. So one thing that I've been kind of thinking about as we've been talking is the fact that you're not just a blind chef, but you're like a blind entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
being an entrepreneur in general is not easy work. Do you like how do you go about like managing your business with the obstacles that you have in front of you?
That's a good question, and you might seriously, I think my growing pains as a small business have less to do with my blindness and more to do with hoops I have to jump through as a business owner. And so it's just my husband and I, but I hire out for my social media, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my all that. I don't do that myself. I write the introductions for it and stuff, and I choose the excerpts of the information I want to put out there, like from this podcast. I'll do that when we're advertising it, but they put it together. My videographer.
Uh-oh, I think we might have lost Deborah on a really good question. Wow, I don't know what happened to her, but I'm going to keep this going and let's hope that she jumps right back in here and we can continue the episode. So it's Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And this has been a day of like really unusual things happening because part of it was the prep. So I'm on TikTok and I'm trying to get everything adjusted for that, hopefully to broadcast in a more seamless way, um, but which I was unable to do. And then I'm changing platforms. So the previous episode, I did an episode, I think it's the episode before this one in the queue, where I had a guest or actually, it's not even really about the guests. It was more about the fact that um, I had an outage on Zoom. So I used to use Zoom, and there was an outage, and I had to think pretty quick as far as getting set up for something else. Either that, or I had to cancel the record, as I have Deborah back
I'm
in the
sorry.
in the episode.
It took me somewhere.
It took you somewhere. Well, hey, I kept everything going. You can just pick right up where you left off, Deborah.
Remind me where I was.
We were talking a bit about being the obstacles, or maybe even
Oh, yes.
non-obstacles, of running a business with your situation.
Yeah, so it has to do a lot. So some of my obstacles are inaccessible websites where I'm expected to fill out a W-9 form or a DocuSign or and things like that where it's not accessible. But I I also want to kind of tout this. You'll find interesting with technology as well. There are two services out there called visual interpretation services. One is Be My Eyes, and it's run by all volunteers, and the other is called IRA, and it's a paid service. Well, people get 5 minutes a day, but you can pay. And when I get a document that's inaccessible, I can call that number. The agent knows who I am. They're bonded, so they can look at my financial information and stuff, and they can actually, using TeamViewer, remote into my computer and actually control my con- and fill out those documents for me. They're talking to me the entire time because they don't know anything about my business or, you know, what my tax identification number or is anything like that, but I can tell them where to find it and they fill them in. So I found ways around that, which is kind of a nice thing, although you pay for it. It's part of the fun. Um, the other thing is I'll just be custom hair and makeup. That's why my picture is not on the thing right now. I don't live with my husband does not do custom hair and makeup. And so and my brand is very important to me. So I don't want to show up, with green hair or anything like that because my lighting's wrong and I don't have a way of knowing how to do that. Um so that's another thing that when you see me on the videos at the studio, we actually film in a professional studio. I didn't do all that. Somebody else did it for me. So,
Like, they did a good job.
oh, you're very kind. Thank you. But yeah, so other people help make me look good, but it's just the usual things. Like I want to teach and I want to cook. That's what I do. And I like doing the workshops and the public speaking opportunities. But somebody's got to mail the items out. They're the bread and butter of the blind kitchen. And so my one of the reasons I'm on this podcast right now is to expose myself to a larger audience, maybe a mainstream audience where maybe somebody out there knows somebody that's blind or vision impaired, because I want to grow the business enough that I can contract that out completely and let someone else handle that. I'll still do the emails and stuff. I enjoy doing that as well, but have someone else manage the part of the business that is not the best use of my talents and my interest.
The world works in mysterious ways, because I had Angela Fowler on, as we've referenced a few times already. I have you on, and then there's another person from Podmatch who I think they're called the Blind Blogger, that
Yes, Maxwell.
I've
Maxwell
talked to
Ivy.
them. Yep, I've
Yeah.
talked to them about being on this show as well, and I don't know when that's gonna happen, but there seems to be like a lot of blind people coming out and showing much what you and the other two are showing, which is, life goes on and you can do great things, regardless of the obstacles that you have in your life.
It's true. Many people, my disability is visual. People can see it. They see me with a long white cane. They know there's a problem there. But there are so many. I don't think any of us get out of here without some type of something that's going to get our way, that we have to overcome it in some way or overthink it. So people just know mine just because of the nature of it. But there are a lot of people that have accomplished a lot more and get through each day, and I wonder how. A lot of times I'm in awe of a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, if there's one person I really felt a connection with Angela, even though our obstacles were like way different when we talked. And I kind of feel the same thing here because I mean, I was born with a very rare syndrome that it's like a package deal. Uh, it's a package deal where the cleft lip and palate are what people see and hear, but there's like other things that I was born with as well, and it's not easy. Like especially, I mean, it's a lot of TMI when you start talking about like stomach issues, which is like the nicest way I can put it. It goes a little beyond stomach, uh, because I
Yeah.
can pretty much eat whatever, but I just, definitely works to my advantage to have a more healthy diet. But I don't have, I have the opposite of constipation, is basically the nicest way that I can
Okay.
put it
And that's
without,
uncomfortable. That's
yeah,
uncomfortable
it's
at best.
well, not only is it not comfortable, but it's a tough way to get through life. I mean, just when you come into the world with an issue like that, you don't come into the world and have an instruction manual on how to navigate life like that. And I have to imagine that there's no instruction manual for having pretty good vision your whole life and then all of a sudden kind of being put where you've been put. So it's like I get it. I understand
Mhm.
just like having more of an issue than just a bad day or, something came up in life and not to trivialize everybody's, obstacles because
Mhm.
it's everybody views their obstacles as bad. Like to kind of quote Jerry Seinfeld, like everybody thinks their life sucks. So, um, they,
It's true, and some things are temporary, and
yeah,
that's a little easier. You and I were dealt cards that are permanent. We're gonna deal with this every day. I'm gonna wake up every day and have to solve problems and try and figure it out, and some days are better than others. There's no doubt, just like anybody else. Some days are better than others. Some days it's not too often, but sometimes I think, boy, I wish this could be easier. I used to be able to do this, without help. But most of the time, it's like you've got choices. How are you going to face the world? And there are people that decide to just stay shut up in their apartment or their room or whatever, because socializing can be difficult when you are different, quote unquote, than other people. It can make for awkward conversations or wonderful conversations, but it's putting yourself at risk because you don't know what it's going to be when you're doing something like that. So yeah, it's interesting. I've had to adjust to it and every day decide who I'm going to be. And some days I'm a different Deborah. It's just the way
I
it works.
I can totally relate, especially on a social level. I mean, I've had my phases off and on in life that socializing was good or I made good connection with somebody or a group, but it's been like very inconsistent because I have not, I've had one guest on my show who was born with a cleft palate and lip, and she is the only person that I've ever actually met or talked to who's had that issue, and then nobody's ever gonna tell me if they have some of the stomach issues that I've endured. No, nobody's gonna tell you that. It's amazing. It is huge that right now I'm live on TikTok, so people are flipping through TikTok and hearing me talk about this. My following, whoever is here, is hearing that, and then whoever listens to or watches this episode, and that's a big step. And just, I, I guess I have to ask, with you being not only blind but like a blind chef, is there like a community of other chefs that you can kind of like engage with and bounce things off of?
I definitely stay in touch with my chef instructors, but remember, an entrepreneur and a teacher. I'm not really, hoofing it up in a fancy restaurant somewhere. So that is not the way it goes. But I wanted to touch back to what you were talking about. You only met one other person with a cleft palate and a limp. I never knew even one blind person until I had vision loss myself. And once you put it out there, and I had to surrender to it because mine was a gradual decline. So I did not want to carry a cane. I did not want to look blind. And I actually got hurt several times because I didn't see something. But if I'd had a cane, it would have detected it. So it took me a while to be able to say, okay, blindness is part of who I am. That's just the way it is. But I went by surrendering to it and then going to get my skills, I met some of the most wonderful people with vision loss for which my path would not have crossed. People that get it with like I do. They understand the frustrations of inaccessible technology or an Uber not wanting to pick you up with your guide dog, canceling the ride when they see that you have a dog with you. Frustrations with, you're on a city bus trying to just get to work, trying to just or to school to live your life, and having people coming up and talking to you like they have permission to talk to you and ask you what happened. And it's like, I mean, they mean well. They're trying to connect, but they're not. When I used to be able to see, that never happened to me as a rule. So it's interesting. But there's once I accepted what was wrong and made it part of my identity. I'm tall. I'm a woman. I'm blind. I mean, those are three things I can't change, and it that made my life easier. But I avoided it. I'll tell you that.
So I can really relate to how you found community because I for years like I have never like I've really struggled with just finding a place and finding community, and it's not like I was all of a sudden diagnosed with podcast itis or TikTok itis, but these are two places where I really feel like it just feels right. I feel like I
Mhm.
belong, and
Mhm.
I feel like I'm with a lot of like-minded people who think the same way I do, maybe have some of the same just obstacles, whether it's like professional, where they're not, you know, feeling like they fit in like the corporate world or whatever the case might be. And I've just always felt that bond. Now, TikTok is fairly new in my world, but I have met so many people now. Like, where have all these wonderful people been my whole life? Like, it just works. We're just very like-minded. We're all like motivated and ambitious in a similar way, and I it's not quite the same as what you have been through, but I can at least relate because the same thing has happened to me in my life.
Yeah, yeah. So people sometimes say social media is going to be the end of us and it's terrible. And I think there are certainly circumstances, especially with young people. with bullying and stuff like that. But if you have a group of mature adults with a common interest, it connects you, and that's a good thing as a rule, where you can learn from each other and talk to each other. So social media is not all bad, and I've seen it work wonders where people that can't get out of their homes can now make connections with other people with similar interests. And I prefer to look at the glass as half full when it comes to social media.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I've been using the internet since 1990, and that was back when only nerdy 12-year-olds like myself were really like using it, and just anybody else, I guess, with computer degree or interest in computers. Like it's not, it wasn't like it is now.
Hmm.
So I've seen it grow from going on message boards and meeting people through that. Like I can remember on Prodigy, they would have, even for young people, like you're in high school, hey, you wanna like date somebody like on a message board who lives like 1,000 miles away, like come drop a message. Maybe you'll meet somebody. And
Oh, they still
they,
have that today, trust me.
well, they still have that today, but at least you can actually like see people and like,
Uh-huh.
get more of a sense of just who they are rather than back then where it was just like you're typing out a message or whatever. And
Hmm.
but I've seen everything grow, just the AOL era
Oh
and
yeah.
into like where we are today. And while there are bad aspects of it, and while you do have people on social media maybe not using it for the most responsible reasons, there are a lot of good things about it and a lot
Hmm.
of good things about technology. And I think people overlook that sometimes.
Right, right. The negative stuff gets a bad press almost always.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think I was just having that conversation with my wife the other day about every once in a while she'll just say, "Boy, I wish it was the way it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago." And maybe you would for a day or two because I'm sure it would feel a lot quieter and calmer and be different in a lot of ways. But I personally think that I would miss it, and I think she and many other people would as well.
Right. Well, she wouldn't be allowed to vote. She wouldn't be allowed to hold a credit card. She'd have to have her husband sign for her to own any type of property. But yeah, and for me, 50 years ago, there were no cell phones, there was no Uber, there was no Lyft. The world was a much harder place, I think, for people with vision loss or any other kind of disability. So I'm embracing it at this point. Of course, there's bad players in it, and it can be used for harm as well. But I prefer to just kind of embrace the good it brings, and the community that I connect with, the people that want to cook in their kitchens and stuff like that. It's you are like in a club, How do you
Right.
do this? How do you do that? And it might not even be adaptive tools. It's just like getting together with a book club. You enjoy a common thing, and you talk about it. So yeah, I think it's a good thing overall.
So, what do you, now that you have been in this business and entrepreneur for a while, what do you hope to do to not only grow your business, but to also maybe help others in a similar situation who want to do the same thing or maybe just want to start a business in general?
Yeah, I am absolutely willing to share my experiences, what my hardships were, how I got through this part of it. This was really rough. How did, there doesn't seem to be a huge blind entrepreneur world. Just like there's not a huge blind chef world. There are blind cooks. That's where I've found my footing in with what I have to offer and what the demand is. But for blind entrepreneurs, there are some, you've mentioned a few of them, And actually, podcasting was the way of blind people, because you didn't have to use visuals. It was, you could be, quote unquote, on a level playing ground with, if you could learn to work the equipment with people that could see, and no one would know that you couldn't see. So that wouldn't even be a factor in it. So I so far I don't see a demand, although I think it's important. They have like the Blind Professionals Network and different things like that for advertising jobs and doing training and things like that, but it hasn't, I haven't seen it catch hold as much as I would like it to. But I can only do so much. I'm staying in my lane.
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope that I'm doing my part to help this along a little bit. And, it certainly wasn't my mission coming into podcasting for sure. But as I've met you and Angela and the blind blogger,
Hmm.
I I see, just how awesome it is that you all are, just rebooting your life. It's like amazing. It's very inspirational to me, and I'm hoping that not only this type of message can get out to other visually impaired people, but just people in general, because whenever I talk about my story as far as becoming a podcaster and
Hmm.
just all of the limiting beliefs that I had. Because all through my life, I think there was like a performer of some sort inside of me. But because of all of like the imposter syndrome and all the things that
Hmm.
people put into your head, going from like your own classmates to even teachers, which I have stories too many to go into on a podcast, at least at this point. But
Hmm.
I I always just kind of limited myself in a lot of ways because I was like, who still want to listen to me? Who still want to watch me?
Hmm.
I don't sound like, I don't know. Oh gosh, I'm getting old. What's his name? Okay, somebody. Just imagine somebody with an amazing voice, and I don't sound like that.
James Earl Jones, how's that?
James Earl Jones is. I was gonna say Morgan
Oh,
Freeman,
him too. Him too.
and
Yeah.
in my head, so I have a thing where, like, as I get older, I can always visualize something in my head, but I'm like, what's the word? I can't get the word out. So, James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman, amazing voices. I will never sound like that. But as I have practiced and done speaking on my content and then on podcasts, I've come to learn that I don't sound as bad as I thought I did. I'm not as bad as I thought I was. And I wasted a lot of time not believing in myself.
Right.
And I want to, that's a big motivation for why I'm determined to stream my podcast through TikTok live, and why I'm fiddling around with Zoom and StreamYard when I have a very good guest about to come on my show, and all this other stuff. And, because I just want to get it out there. I want to inspire people. And I feel like a story like yours or Angela's, those are the exact stories that I think we need to hear. And I love the fact that both of you have been on my show for that reason.
Mm. Well, Mark, you never know where your words, whatever voice you have, that people hear are going to make a difference. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was an entrepreneur one, and they were talking about fears. And you were talking about those. I'm not good enough. People won't want to listen to me. I'm afraid I'm not going to have any good things to say or whatever. And they talked about kind of recognizing your fears. What does it look like? Most people, they don't put a sign in front of your eyes and say, you're afraid right now. That's why you're not doing it. you're not doing this other idea that you wanted to try. And what I came away with that, and it's been very helpful for me, is that the way my fear is expressed is in procrastination. If I know I need to do something, I'm a doer. I'll just do it. But if I find that I'm procrastinating, that means I've got to look closer at that. It's bigger than just I don't want to do dishes right now. Or that's a bad example, but I don't want to reach out to this person that I know could probably help me, or the imposter syndrome, like you're talking about. So I notice when I'm procrastinating on something that doesn't make sense why I'm procrastinating, but I am, and it's usually associated with some kind of fear. So that's been that little gem in that probably hour-long podcast was very helpful to me to help me move on. And I can't even remember who said it, but somebody planted that seed in me, and it's made a difference in my life and how I approach my work.
That's exactly why I do what I do. I'm hoping that I can reach people. Like, sure, I love talking to entrepreneurs like you and all the 100 plus I've had on this show. But
Hmm.
my goal really is to hopefully reach people and get them to think maybe a little bit differently, not only through my story, but also through the transitions that so many of the entrepreneurs out there have made with their lives due to whatever obstacle or maybe even non-obstacle, but
Hmm.
procrastination. So if I just sat on my hands 5 years ago or so and just said, I'll do that someday. I'll figure out how to set it up. I'll figure out and I'll learn eventually. That's like 3, 4, 5 years that I would have wasted. So
Hmm.
I came to the conclusion that look, if I want to do this, I gotta do it like today.
Right, right. Time goes so fast. And the other thing is, if you when you're doing something new, you're transitioning into podcasting or cooking or whatever, it feels huge. There is so much information you need to go through, you need to get, just finding out which platform to be on. You've got to
Right.
examine probably 10 platforms to find out where are the pros and cons and what do you want to do, what are other people doing. You I approach it like, how do you eat an elephant? And don't get after me, Pete. I don't eat elephants, but how do you eat an elephant? The answer is one bite at a time. And that's one way that I've been able to get through this. Like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. This is too much. What can I do right now to complete it, check it off my checklist, and feel like I've accomplished something? And then I'm more motivated to do the next step that I need to do. So it can be really overwhelming. But if people can see that other people, with or without apparent difficulties, have been able to achieve transitions, then they're more likely to believe that maybe they can too.
I believe you, like totally. Yeah, I 100%. And I want to keep this moving along a little bit. So there's a question on Podmatch. The questions Deborah is always ready to answer that I want to ask. And actually, just full disclosure, when I was trying to ask you what is the most important culinary tool that you use, the words the and most are like run together. That's why I sounded like what the heck when I was asking that
Oh,
question.
I'll have to go back
So
and edit that. Thank you.
I didn't want to say that at the time, but I'll tell you now. Oh gosh, and now this thing wants me. So one of the downsides to doing TikTok live is that there we go. I'm back on. So they wanted me to match up the shapes because I wasn't moving enough. So
Oh, they want to
um,
make sure you're still there.
yeah, they want to make sure I'm still there. No, I'm still here. I'm not addressing you directly, but I'm here and hope you're enjoying
Oh,
this awesome episode. So, getting back to what I was saying, there was one question before we get to the end here that keeps sticking out that I have to ask, which is what are the most common fears you hear from vision impaired cooks? Like, are there any fears that you have as well?
I think I'm afraid every time I stand in front of a hot pan because I know I'm potentially in danger. So, but it's a fear that you should have too, because you could burn
I
yourself
do.
as well. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like it's not panic. I'm not paralyzed by that fear. Where there are some fears in the past that I have been paralyzed by. When I was first learning to cook under blindfold, I there were times when I couldn't move. I had to stop and think myself through it. But for most people, there's really several fears. We talked about the fear of making people sick. That's one of them. I'm not going to cook because I might make people sick. Another fears, of course, are cutting yourself or burning yourself. Those are very common fears and well placed. They need to be managed for sure. The other is fear of embarrassment. Embarrassment for two reasons. One is that you're going to appear sloppy or disorganized or unclean while you're cooking. And the other fear is that if I hand you a dish that I prepared for you, I can't see it. Are you going to think it's attractive or not? Or is it really just a mess and I don't know it? Um, and then the other fear we talked about was making your family and friends sick. But there's another fear that has to do with cooks and vision loss, and this one's important. It's fear from family members who can see, who are afraid of letting the person with vision loss be in the kitchen. And that's a real fear and well placed, well intended, but it's just not true. People can cook safely in the kitchen if they have the right tools and the right strategies. So those are pretty much the fears that I have found in my work and my presentations and interactions with people with vision loss. And they're all manageable.
Those are all things that I don't think day to day that many people would ever even think about as an obstacle or a fear. And I'm really glad that I not only found the time to ask that, but I'm glad, like, I love your answer. I don't necessarily love the fears, but it gives everybody something to think about. Like, those are like really legit things that I'm sure come up and happen and are obstacles not only for the visually impaired, but those who are trying to support. And it goes beyond just being a cook or a chef or whatever it is. It's just life in general. So you brought up some excellent points there.
Oh, thank you. It's just what
And
I've seen. Yeah, or what I've
yeah,
found. Yeah.
well, we're kind of getting to the end here, so I just want to ask you, how can people, and I already know of some of the places because some of your social media, YouTube, like Instagram, everything is like wonderful. You have some great content. How can people find you? How can they work with you? How can they learn more about you?
Yeah, you can go to theblindkitchen.com and you can see the different tools and strategies. There's a library page on there. And we have audio described video. So even if you can't see a thing, it is either going to, I'm talking, I'm describing what I'm doing or whatever. Sometimes I have to be quiet. I know it's hard to believe, but sometimes I have to be quiet and concentrate and can't talk at the same time I'm doing something. So then we have a professional person come in and audio just tell people what is happening with me in the kitchen, very descriptively. You can also write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com, or you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to reach out, I answer all the emails at info@theblindkitchen.com. And I love getting the emails and interacting with people. So yeah, that's where you can reach me. Theblindkitchen.com is probably a really good place to start.
Awesome. Well, Debra Erickson, founder, owner of The Blind Kitchen. I really appreciate you being on Mark My Words today. I thank you so much, not only for the awesome episode, but also for like your enormous patience and navigating links and all other kinds of stuff with me today. This was a wonderful episode. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me very much.
All righty. Well, again, this was Debra Erickson. She's the founder and owner of the Blind Kitchen. I am Marc Schmidt of Mark My Words, which not just of, but the host of Mark My Words, many other things of Mark My Words. I think it's time for me to go take a rest, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Marc Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the Crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.